the Global Sovereigns Handbook and the others, and there's some audio courses as well. So there's plenty of materials there that you can take home with if you're not there at the seminar tomorrow, or if you want to continue with study groups and things of that nature. Yes, and then I'll continue.
Would you take a silver dollar?
What?
Would you take a silver dollar?
Oh, you betcha I would. Gold would even be better. No. Yes, of course I would.
The seminar's here, right?
The seminar is here tomorrow from 11 to 3, and it would be nice to see a show of hands if anybody already knows. If you want to be here tomorrow. You don't have to commit right now. You can make your mind up and come tomorrow too if you want.
You might want to.
But I'd like to know there's a few people here to attend. Yes?
I was wondering if you could, I mean, you've already somewhat addressed, but being within this movement and in the pinnacle position that you've been over all these years, what are some of the misconceptions around sovereignty that you've directly experienced?
Okay. Well, okay, the first misconception is that give me a form so I can fill it out and send it to the government because I want to be sovereign. That was the first misconception. If I just send forms to the government, I'm going to be sovereign. Paperwork. The paperwork myth. The other is the straw man myth. Oh, well, I'm the straw man of the UCC and redemption and blah, 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 and the commercial code and da-da-da, and all I got to do is send my UCC 1 to the state and then blah, blah, blah. Myth. Very popular myth, an enduring myth and popular one. But probably the one that's been the most damaging is those who have used sovereignty for their own personal gain and purposes that haven't been in integrity. There have been people that have been scamming and, you know, just pay me and I'll do all the paperwork and it'll all be perfect and you'll win in court and we've had 100% success rate and bullshit. I haven't seen much success because I don't measure success even by just one dismissal of one case. And some people would say, well, that's a great success. My paperwork works. I have the silver bullet. The silver bullet myth. Yes, I have the silver bullet. The silver dollar I'll accept. The silver bullet I would not accept as a metaphor. Anyway, there are no silver bullets. Everything is very specific to your situation generally, and I call it clerk or judge or attorney specific, which means that you're going to get a very different result with one judge than you are with another. You're going to get a very different situation and be given different information as a clerk sitting at a desk getting information from somebody, from one clerk as you will from another. Don't rely on that as viable information to start with. You've got to do your own research. You've got to back it up with your own experience. That's part of what being sovereign is about, and having the mental capability to do that. Doesn't mean you can't ever counsel other people or be counseled by other people, but it's important that you make up your own mind and be responsible about these things. I'll keep saying it over again. Responsibility is not a burden. We have been taught since we were little kids that responsibility is a burden, something you want to shun. You don't want to be responsible. Somebody else is responsible for me. My mom, my dad, the government, my boss, whoever else. They're the responsible ones. But when you make that statement to yourself, when you declare that, then you've just given all your power away. And so through the consent of the governed, we, the people, have abrogated our responsibility, and thus we have exactly the government, lack of government, we have the exact public corporation that we deserve. And that's a shocking, hard thing to hear, but it's true. We are responsible for exactly, we have created that because we abrogated our power. And we gave up our country, we gave up our citizenship, we gave up our minds, we gave it all over to the consumer distraction. And so now we have to deal with that in whatever way that we possibly can. So those were the three myths that I would debunk initially. All right, back to the solutions. So we want to stay solution focused here. This is not a problem. Life is not a problem. The government isn't a problem. Austin's not a problem. You're not a problem. There are no problems. There's just things out of balance that we have to correct. We have to do course corrections. Buckminster Fuller used the analogy of if you want to change the system, then don't fight it. We're not gonna win the revolution and fight it with fighting energy. That's like fighting fire with fire. You fight fire with fire, what happens to the fire? It grows bigger and justifies even larger and greater oppression if you fight fire with fire. That's why nonviolence and the Gandhian movements were so successful, in my opinion, because they didn't fight fire with fire. They fought it with the Aikido move, which was to take the blow and not to react with violence or even with anger, because anger is a projection too. And it may not physically hurt you, but it emotionally can wound you, as anybody knows who's been on one side or the other of anger. So again, being responsible for all those
May I give
different
an
things. Yes.
analogy of fighting fire with fire? The only way it works is if you use a controlled fire to burn a ring of earth around a fire that's already burning. So what you do is that relates to your mental state, where you burn off those fires, where you find stillness, where you find your center, where you find peace within yourself to aid in your sovereignty. And that's fighting fire with fire on one level.
I love that. And I love the analogy too, because in the martial arts and certain trainings, you put the circle around you, right? You've got your circle of power, wherever that is, right? And so every one of those aspects of power, you've got a circle of power around that too, a container for that. So that's beautiful. So as Buckminster Fuller was saying, instead of fighting and opposing something, all you have to do is be proactive and create something even more powerful that makes that obsolete. If you make it obsolete, we don't need all that stuff, that 65% of GMP being regulated. We don't really need most of that stuff. So I'm going to operate as if it doesn't exist, to whatever degree that I possibly and feasibly can. And I'm going to operate in a field of free enterprise and free thinking and entrepreneurship and being proactive and solution-focused and oriented over here. And so what Bucky did, he used the analogy of if you want to move a big system, like this whole monster machine that we have out there, like moving a big steamship, you can't push that steamship and make it go left or right or one direction. I don't care how many people are pushing that steamship, it ain't going to move. But there's this little tiny thumb-sized trim tab up on the control deck. And if you learn where the trim tab is, you can move it one way or another with a simple movement of the thumb, and you can move a megaton steamship one direction or another. So that's how systems get moved, by identifying those trim tabs, or what is your grain of salt? What is it that will unify people? And interestingly, that the whole Wall Street thing, you know how that got started, right? That was a marketing effort by Adbusters magazine of the Media Foundation out of Vancouver, British Columbia. They created a poster. I'll pass it around. That's the original poster that was in their magazine, Adbusters. And it caught on like that brush fire we're talking about, that circle of power, into now 2,700 cities. Yes, sir?
Who are we supposed to pay? They don't.
Yeah, all that stuff is all my stuff over there, so you can, if you gotta run?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, well just, here's what I'm gonna do.
You take credit
The
card?
honor system, I don't have any credit here. I'd have to go get to the cash machine or something. But I put the hat on the table, everything's marked, and put your money in the little thing there. Okay, thank you. Where was I there?
Did you take that already?
Trim tab.
Trim tabs. So if you want to move a big system, you identify where those trim tabs are. So that's how we're going to move this whole system. And these are the trim tabs. Sovereignty, be a sovereign being. Restore the republic and learn how to govern yourself. Restore sound monetary systems by the way you're doing business and become a producer in the system. And then the next piece tonight is building renewable energy infrastructure, because we have to get off of our fossil fuels dependencies. And that is an area of development that is occurring in corporate America that is a positive development. And it is moving very, very quickly. It's not as quick as I'd like to see. It could be the Manhattan Project if we put our minds to it. And in 5 years, we could convert all of America to renewable energy infrastructure and get off the fossil fuels and convert every vehicle and every truck and everything else. But we're moving a lot slower than that because we've been, well, it's part of the American dream. There is no American dream. Get over it. The car, the automobile is not part of your dream anymore. That's part of the nightmare. That's part of the American nightmare now. Too many cars, too many trucks, too many fumes, too many poisons, too many industrial chemicals, too many fossil fuels, too many environments being destroyed.